What is going on, family? Today I'm about to show you guys how to create this. Alright, first and foremost, this is completely an easy tutorial, and I'm only going to be highlighting and focusing on the hand going through the second subject's body. That's the only thing I'm basically going to be teaching you guys in this specific tutorial. So be sure to follow along, pay attention, download everything below. Alright, I've provided some free sound effects and some free visual effects assets as well too that you guys can actually use. The only plugin that we'll also be using is Heat Distortion. If you guys already have it, that's great. If you don't have it, you don't have to necessarily worry about it. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this tutorial. I'm going to show you guys how to create this. It's going to be absolutely easy. Now, of course, I'm not going to show you guys how to do this disintegrating into dust effect because this is not necessarily the best that I've ever done. In the near future, I'm going to show you guys how to create this demonic eye effect. You know what I'm saying? So you can have that on your video. I'm going to show you guys how to do that so you can get that clean look. So what I want you to do is come over here to your left panel and go ahead and grab your footage and place your footage into a new composition. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off all of this because we're only going to be focusing on this. Now guys, the way you definitely need to record your video is basically like this. So first, make sure your video is shot on a tripod because recording this video on a tripod is going to make the effect look completely easy and clean. Have your first subject stand right in front of the camera like so, and basically move out of the frame. Make sure you have a clean plate, and then at the same exact time, have your second character appear into the scene where it appears as if he's sticking his hands through the camera. Now make sure that he's standing exactly in the same position as the first character was basically standing. Go ahead and grab the time indicator, right? And move the time indicator all the way over here to the part where our first subject is basically standing. So just about right here, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-Shift-D on my keyboard. And then I'm going to select this layer and I'm going to press delete on my keyboard to delete it. Then I'm going to move this all the way over here to the very beginning itself. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the time indicator and just about right here, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-Shift-D to stop it because it seems as if this is the part where his hand is basically sticking through his chest and he's basically looking down at it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this time indicator all the way over here to the part where my subject runs into the frame. Now, like I said, guys, I'm only going to be showing you guys this specific aspect. I'm not going to show you guys how to do the run into the scene because I've already made a tutorial showing you guys how to do the flash, zoom, all the Speedster's running effect. You guys should already know how to do that. But in this specific tutorial, I'm only going to be highlighting and focusing on this specific effect. So I'm going to come all the way over here, just about right here where I'm about to stick my hands through my subject. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D to split the layer, select this layer and delete it, and then move this time indicator all the way over here to the very end. Now here's what's going to happen actually. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to crop this out just about right here where he basically sticks his hand out, and then I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D. Then I'm going to delete this ending piece. So here's exactly what's going to happen. We're only going to be focusing on this specific area, and let me show you exactly what you need to do. So we're going to go ahead and click on the bottom layer, and we're going to go ahead and press enter to rename this, and we're going to rename this to second. All right, second guy, and then maybe change the color to yellow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select the top itself and then rename this to bad guy, bad guy, something like that. And then maybe, whatever color you desire, you can change the color to that as well too. But I'm going to leave mine as silver. And I'm going to hit Control-S to save the project. Once you save the project, make sure you title the project a really good name, and everything else should look perfect. So here's exactly what's going to happen. All right. So basically, right, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn off these two layers, right? Turn off the bad layer, the bad guy layer, and make sure that the second guy layer is the only thing that is on. Now, guys, another thing that I definitely want to say is when I did record my video itself had perfect lighting in the scene. My camera itself was perfectly focused on my subject and everything looks good. So if I change the quality from quarter to full, you should be able to see my subject highlighted well so that when I actually start rotoscoping, it's going to be easy. Now, for my advanced professionals that know how to use After Effects to the core, the only thing that I would definitely say is be sure to you can record this on a green screen. If you have a green screen, recording this on this green screen is going to be absolutely easy, so you can go ahead and skip this process. So here's exactly what's going to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this time indicator to the very beginning, okay? I'm going to move this time indicator to the very beginning and make sure that this layer is positioned perfectly. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to come all the way over here because this is the part where my hand kind of stops, I'm going to press N on the keyboard to trim the comp to this specific area, right? And I'm going to right click this space, and then I'm going to go ahead and click trim comp to work area. And then basically it's going to highlight only this specific aspect. Now here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to come all the way over here and grab the Roto brush tool, click on that, double click the second guy to open this into a new layer, zoom in, and begin to draw sort of like a mask around my subject. So just begin to draw a rough mask around your subject. And then if it begins to select unwanted areas, hold Alt for my people that are using Windows, or Options for my people that are using Mac. And then basically deselect these unwanted areas. Zoom out, hold the space bar to reposition properly, and then just be sure to go ahead and grab the pen tool, the Roto brush tool, and then begin to draw a rough mask around our area. Now be sure to make sure that everything looks perfect. If you don't do this perfectly, it's not going to look good. So be sure to highlight your subject very well. Highlight your subject very well. I really highly recommend highlighting your subject very well, highlighting the legs and making sure that everything is good and removing all those unwanted areas. Now be sure to do this perfectly. Again, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but I mean, as long as it looks good, that's all that matters. Since I'm wearing chains, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this specific area. I'm going to hit Control S to save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way over here to the right section, and then I'm going to press play. And when I press play, what's going to happen is essentially it's going to start rotoscoping my whole entire subject. All right. So it's going to basically track my subject's movements frame by frame and make sure that everything looks good. Now that it's completely done, what's going to happen next is I'm going to come all the way back over here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S to save my project one more time, and then go ahead and click on the selection tool. Once I've clicked on the selection tool, come back over here to the composition footage tool, and then I'm going to basically click on that. And once you come back into your main comp, you should see that it has completely masked out our subject perfectly. But as you can see, there's quite a bit of some minor errors over here in the edge right around here, but that can be easily fixed. What you can do is you can go ahead and increase the feather amount a bit so that it kind of like makes the edges a little bit less sharper. And you can go ahead and reduce the shift edge so that it kind of takes away a bit of the white detail from our subject's body. Now, what you can even do is you can come back to your layer itself, right? Let me close this out. You can come back into your layer. You can zoom in, hold space, and reposition. And what you can even do is come all the way over here to the very beginning where you begin to see these unwanted areas. Go ahead and grab the Roto brush tool, hold Alt, and just basically deselect that area. And then it's going to basically reprocess again, but it should be perfectly fine. Once you've basically rotoscoped your subject, what I want you to do is I want you to come all the way down here and select the second guy and come all the way to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And then basically, once you've basically added to render queue, what's going to happen is you're going to come into these settings, click on H2.64, and make sure, hold on, before you even do all that, make sure you go back. Make sure the second guy is selected, okay? Make sure these two, the top layer is completely turned off. Come all the way back down here, select the H.264, go ahead and click on this H.264, click on QuickTime, click on Channels, and click on RGB+Alpha. So what's going to happen is it's basically going to completely cut out our guy and completely eliminate the background itself. Then what you want to do is you want to come all the way over here, rename this to whatever you want to rename this. For me, I renamed it to Roto Body. Rename it to Roto Body, save, press render. Once you've basically pressed render, what you're going to do is you're going to come back in here. You're going to double click this space. And then once you've double clicked this space, you're going to import that import that rendered video that you basically did. And you're going to basically bring it back into your scene. Once you've done that, you will basically grab that, right? And then you will basically drag it down into this specific layer. So I've already shown you guys the process. Go ahead and give it a shot. Let me know exactly what you guys think. Now, once that is basically in the scene, it should already be a pre-rendered file. So you will not necessarily, if you go to the effects panel, you should not see the Roto brush tool over here. What you can do is you can basically delete the previous one. The one that was below it, you can basically delete that one so that you don't necessarily have to worry about it ever again. So delete the previous one, the unrendered one, and then basically keep the rendered one itself. So there should only be 2 of these layers, and then basically you can rename it and change the color as well to back to this. Once that has already been set and you're good to go, here's exactly what's going to happen next. You're going to go ahead and turn on the bad guy layer itself, and then you're going to reposition the bad guy layer below the second guy. Now, once you do that, automatically you should start to see the blending in the scene. You should see how my second guy is blending in very well with my background. You can change the name from the bad guy to just BG for background. And I think that's perfectly fine. Maybe let's change the color to brown so that we know that this is the background, this is the second guy. Now, of course, you can clearly see that my subject itself is sticking his hand through our subject. But here's the problem though. For this guy, it seems like his hand is all the way up here and my guy's body is all the way down here. That was my mistake. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and click on the second guy itself. I'm going to press S on the keyboard. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the scale a bit. And then I'm basically going to reposition it somewhere around here so that it fits perfectly where my subject's hand is at, if that makes sense. Reposition it and make sure it perfectly aligns. Now, what can happen is if you guys pay attention to the colorization, sometimes the color may be a little bit distorted. That's why I believe that every time when you're recording your video, make sure you use natural light or you have the same exact consistent light throughout the shot so that everything looks perfect. If you look at my second guy, his body's color just a little bit doesn't look too matched with the background. So what's going to happen is I'm going to come all the way to the effects and presets tab and I'm going to search up this effect called curves. I'm going to drag curves and then I'm going to place it into my second guy's layer. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to basically just decrease the brightness a bit so that my skin tone looks a bit darker. And then once that's done, I'm going to hit Control S and I'm basically going to save the project. Now, here is the fun part. So we're going to make sure that we match exactly the movements of my first guy basically sticking his hands through my second guy and my second guy basically reacting to the movement, if that makes sense. So what's going to happen is I'm going to offset this a bit just around right here so it appears to be consistent with the footage. If I press spacebar and I press play, so it should look something like this. So if I turn it off, it's like this. So he should be reacting just around right here. Right here. About right here. So if I turn it off, so right about here, he should be reacting. So there we go. Perfect. Everything matches perfectly. Now here's the fun part. What's going to happen next is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reposition it somewhere around here again. This is perfect. Hit Control S to basically save your progress. What's going to happen is I'm going to turn off the second guy layer. And what's going to happen is right around here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the background itself, the BG, hit Control D to duplicate, hit Control Shift D to cut this area out and delete this ending piece, move all the way over here and go ahead and just basically hit Control, right around here, hit Control Shift D at the part where he basically removes his hand. Now change the color itself from from brown to something like red, and then go ahead and rename this to hand. Now we're gonna rinse and repeat the same exact process that we did for the previous for this specific layer. We're going to do the exact same thing by going over here and using the rotoscoping tool. Hit Control S to save your project, select the hand, come all the way to the roto brush, double click this layer to open it up into a new layer, zoom in into your hand, and just begin to rotoscope your subject's hand, all right? Be sure to rotoscope this perfectly, all right? All right, just make sure you rotoscope the hand, not the background of the hand, or if that makes sense. Once you basically rotoscope your subject's hand, just repeat the same process by, exporting it as a QuickTime RGB+Alpha file. Be sure to do that. Export it in that way, and then basically import that same footage into your scene. I'm basically going to skip this part entirely because you guys already know how to do the rotoscoping and at the exact same time how to export. Once you've basically done that and you've basically imported your hand should look something like this. You see, I rotoscoped my hand and then now I have basically imported my hand. Now my hand is right here. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag my hand and reposition it into my timeline. Now, of course, it has to perfectly match well with my hand movements. So basically offset the hand to make sure that it matches perfectly with the movements. Now, as you can see, it matches perfectly, right? Once that has been done, I'm going to place that on top of the second guy, and I'm going to turn on my second guy, and you can clearly see my hand is now in frame. Hit Control S to basically save the progress. And here's exactly what's going to happen next. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and click on the hand, and we're going to come to the Effects and Presets tab, and we're going to search up this effect called Directional Blur. Click on Directional Blur and drag that onto your hand layer. Now be sure to offset this direction all the way down about 180 degrees or 183, doesn't really matter, just around 180. And then go ahead and increase the blur length somewhere to like 38.4. Now hit Control S to save your project. Now you're going to come all the way over here to the Effects and Presets tab again, and you're going to search up this effect called Fast Box Blur. Drag that into the hand layer. Now, of course, you can change the hand layer back to red and the color back to red. And then you're going to basically come to the Effects and Presets tab, change the blur dimensions from horizontal and vertical to just vertical. Then what you're going to do is you're going to increase the blur radius a bit to like around 15. You're going to hold Alt or Option on your keyboard and then go ahead and click on the blur radius, and it basically is going to open up an expression tab somewhere down here. Now what you're going to do is you're going to delete this and you're going to type in wiggle, open bracket, or double click it. For those of you guys who do have Adobe After Effects 2023, this option will be an option, but if you don't have it, you will just have to manually type it in here. So go ahead and click on the wiggle. So go ahead and type in this specific expression. Type in 20, comma, right, 40, and then close. So what's going to happen is it's going to add a bit of a wiggle to our subject's hand, but we're not done yet. What's going to happen next is we're going to go ahead and click on the fast blur, and we're going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And this time around, we're going to change a couple of settings over here. Hold Alt on your keyboard and go ahead and click on the blur radius to basically turn off the expression on that. Now, what you're going to do is hold Alt, and you're going to come all the way over here and click on the iterations to create a new expressions on the iterations. Now, go ahead and type in this value. You're going to type in wiggle, select it, and then you're going to type in 20, 60, and then click away. Now, this time around, you have added a bit of some extra movements and some extra wiggles to our subject. So basically, if I come over here and I go ahead and change the quality from full to quarter, and then I basically zoom out and I press play, this is exactly how it looks like. You see? Perfect, isn't it? Awesome. Now let's go ahead and press Control S to save the current progress. And what we're going to do next is we're going to come all the way over here into our sound effects tab. We're going to go ahead and drag this hand vibrating sound effects and just drag it down here into our layer. Now be sure to reposition it and offset it to somewhere around here where my guy sticks his hand through the guy. And just about the part where he takes his hand out, go ahead and hit Control Shift D and then basically split this specific layer. Now, of course, you can grab some free whoosh sound effects from online, but the sound effect that I basically use to simulate the sound effect, that specific sound effect, was something that I basically grabbed and then I manipulated it, but I'll be sure to include that for you, so you would be able to see it over here. Now, you should definitely see the hand whoosh sound effect over here in your tab. Go ahead and drag the hand whoosh sound effects over here, and then just go ahead and double click L to see the sound waves, and then just about right here where he basically sticks his hand out, you can manipulate or reposition this sound effect somewhere around here so that as the part is basically increasing, this is exactly where the sound effect and the graphics are also taking place. So if you press play, perfect. You can even go ahead and duplicate that same sound by hitting Control D on your keyboard to duplicate and just basically offset this somewhere over here to the very beginning. Double click L itself and then right click on the sound effects, go to time stretch, and just change the stretch factor to like 75. And then just basically reposition it somewhere around here and press play. And that's exactly how you do this, guys. Go ahead and hit Control S to basically save your progress. And let's go ahead and add a couple of elements and we should be good to go. Now, here's what's going to happen. We're going to come all the way to the VFX tab and you should see the little effects that I basically provided, the sparks effects, go ahead and drag the sparks effects into your composition itself. And then what's going to happen is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press S on the keyboard, and I'm basically going to zoom out a bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way to the rectangle tool, and then go ahead and click and hold until I select the ellipse tool. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard, and then I'm going to double click the ellipse tool by making sure that I select the colorful sparks first, hold shift, double click the ellipse tool to create a perfect circle around your layer. Go ahead and press F on the keyboard, feather this out a bit, double click M or triple click M, and then basically reduce the mask expansion a bit, and then go ahead and change this by clicking toggle switches in mode. Under mode, click on screen to make this completely, to remove the black background. Hit Control S to save. Come over here to the Effects and Presets tab and search up Hue/Saturation. Drag and drag that onto our layer. Change the color by, go ahead and click on Colorize. Increase the color saturation and basically change the color to like blue. Perfect. And once you've done that, what I want you to do is go ahead and select the same layer, hit S on the keyboard, increase the size a bit, somewhere around here. And what's going to happen is we're going to basically animate this lightning a bit by playing around with the opacity. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You can go ahead and turn off the sound effect for that specific layer, because this specific sound effect has all of those things inside of it. So you don't necessarily have to worry too much about it. Now go ahead and click on the colorful sparks itself, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and press T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity. And what's going to happen essentially is you're going to offset this right around here. So just about right where our hand is in frame. Go ahead and set a keyframe on the opacity itself. Move about 1-2 frames, decrease this down to 0, and then move this somewhere around here, about a few frames forward again. Go ahead and set a keyframe right here, and then move this to the next frame. Increase this to 100. Matter of fact, press S on the keyboard, reduce the scale a bit, press T once again to return back to the opacity. Move this a few frames forward again, and then go ahead and decrease this to 0 as well too. Come all the way to the very beginning, hold Alt on the keyboard, and go ahead and hold Alt or Option, and then click on this specific keyframe to basically bring up the expressions one more time. Now go ahead and change this to, delete that and type in loop, and then go ahead and select loop out, open bracket, close bracket, and then click away. And then just close this. And then if you press play, the lightning animation consistently flickers from time to time, and that's exactly what we want. Come all the way over here to the very ending and go ahead and hit Control Shift D, and then basically delete that ending piece. Now what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and click on this specific layer one more time, and of course you can change the color to like blue. And what you can even do is you can press S on the keyboard, set a keyframe on the scale, hold Shift and press P, and to basically pull up the position settings, set a keyframe on the position itself, and then basically move this a few frames forward, and then you can basically reposition it somewhere around here. Decrease this scale a bit, move over here a few frames forward, and you can just basically reposition it every time you see the lightning appears, so that it kind of like matches and stays consistent with our hand, if that makes sense. You can keep repeating the same process until you get the look that you're looking for, and voila, it should look something like this. Perfect. Now what you can even do next is you can come all the way over here to the very bottom, right click on this space, go to click on new, and go ahead and click on the adjustment layer. Now what I want you to do is press enter and change this name to flicker plus distortion, so you can just leave it as dist for short. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add just like a little tiny bit of distortion to our layer to just give it a bit of a vibe, and some flicker animations as well too. Go ahead and crop this out to make sure it matches perfectly with your lightning. Hit Control S to save one more time, and go ahead and come into the Effects and Presets tab and search up curves. All right, click on curves, drag curves into the flicker layer, and then basically adjust the color settings by changing the RGB a bit. Make it brighter, change the blue and increase the blue a little bit. Go ahead and click on it one more time, click on red, decrease the red to get that nice navy blue type of look. Select the ellipse tool, select the flicker layer, and then basically draw a circle around where the lightning is basically taking place. And then go ahead and click on this parent pick whip tool and make sure you parent it to the sparks. Once you've done that, Go ahead and press F on the keyboard and feather this out a bit to like around 100 or 200. Again, based on how your thing appears. Hit Control S to save. And what's going to happen is it's basically going to follow along our lightning as it stays consistent. Now, what you can even do is you can go ahead and press on the colorful sparks, press T on the keyboard, go ahead and click on the opacity itself, hit Control C to copy that, click on the flicker dust plus this, and hit Control V to paste the same, opacity into the same exact layer, if that makes sense. Now, what you can even do is you can come over here to the Effects and Presets tab and search up Heat Distortion. Now, if you don't have it, it's okay. This is a basic tutorial. Click on the Heat Distortion, drag it into our Flicker Dust, Flicker plus Dist layer, and then go ahead and increase the speed a bit. And I'm going to reduce the heat amount, and then I'm going to basically maybe increase the distortion amount to like 16. So it's going to add a bit of a, distortion to our lightning. You see that? And that's basically how you do this simple but easy effect. And once you've basically completed that, what's going to happen next, guys, is you're going to hit Control S to save your progress. Select all of these layers, right click it, go to click on Pre-Compose, and just rename this to completed or done or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. Just rename it. I'm going to rename this to completed, and we're just going to add some camera shake, and that's pretty much it. Hit Control S to basically save. And what I do is I come over here to the Effects and Presets tab and search up Motion Tile. All right, so go ahead and click on Motion Tile itself. Drag and drop that into this specific layer. Go ahead and click on Mirror Edges, and be sure to go ahead and increase the output height to something above 150. So you can have both of them at 170. That's perfectly fine. Once you've done that, just come back over here to the Effects and Presets tab and search up Wiggle. Click on Wiggle Position, drag that into your layer. And what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and manually play around with this specific area. So we're going to come all the way over here to the part where his hand basically goes through the subject. Hit Control Shift D to split that specific layer. Click on this specific layer, and then basically click on this arrow button, click on the effects, and just delete all the effects because we don't need the effects for that part. And then just this specific part right here, what's going to happen is you're going to come all the way to the very end where he sticks his hand out, hit Control Shift D, and then basically repeat the same process by deleting all the effects off of it. Now, come back to the middle layer and then just basically increase the wiggle speed a bit, decrease the wiggle amount a bit to around like 13, and go ahead and click on the toggle switches of mode and go ahead and set a motion blur on it so that we have a bit of some camera shake. Again, you can adjust the camera shake to your liking. You can set keyframes and stopwatches and all that kind of stuff to help you get the look that you're basically looking for. Hit Control S. And what I like to do is I like to, manually add a bit of some color grade to it. Now, of course, this is basic color grade. It's nothing too crazy. Right click on this space, go to New, Adjustment Layer. And like I always tell you, you can always come over here to the Effects and Presets tab, search up Lumetri color, drag that onto your layer, and then manually just select different variations of colors and play around with it to get the look that you're basically looking for. So for this specific effect, I would like for this thing to be more sharpened. Again, play around with it, get the look you're looking for, and once you're satisfied, you're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and delete it because that's not necessary. So once you've basically selected and you've finished everything and you're ready to render, just come all the way over here to the very beginning, right click and click on the file, go to Export, Add to Render Queue, and then as you already know, delete the top layer. Make sure this thing is set to H.264, select the footage, and then basically select exactly where you want to save your project. Once you do that, press save, press render, and that's basically it. Like I said, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. This is completely easy, beginner friendly. I wanted to make this completely easy because if I was to show you everything, it would be too complicated. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Collins here, signing out. Bye-bye.